Spotlighting Hawaii's leaders.
We want to bring in Governor David E.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Lieutenant Governor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. Mayor Derek Kawakami.
Thank you so much, Senator, for being here.
Spotlighting the issues.
Where is the virus right now in our community?
How much is this overall going to cost the state?
How are you responding to the community's concerns? Talk about the level of citations that you guys are writing.
Spotlight Hawaii with Yunji Denise and Ryan Kalei Suji on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Chaminade University.
Well, good morning and happy Aloha Friday. Good to see you all here on this Friday morning. I'm Ryan Kalei Suji, joined by Yunji Denise, and we primarily talk on this show, or have been for the past few weeks, about COVID-19. We're taking a little bit of a break, and we're going to be focusing in on the race for governor. It's, Yunji, hard to believe next year we'll be deciding who our next governor will be.
That's right. All eyes, of course, on the state capitol. Whoever fills that seat will be making a lot of decisions in steering how the state continues to handle the COVID-19 crisis and also rebuilding our economy after so much loss over the last year and a half. Joining us now is Vicky Cayetano. She is a familiar face, of course, in our community, former First Lady, President and CEO of United Laundry, and does a lot of philanthropy in the community, and now a candidate for governor. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Yunji and Ryan. Thank you for having me today.
We're so happy to have you. You announced your candidacy at the end of August. Tell us what compelled you to get into the race.
Well, you know, our state has never been at a more critical juncture than we are right now. With the pandemic, there's been so many issues that have come to light, such as our economy, sustainable tourism, environment, and our food security. Like so many people who've operated businesses, and I've been doing this 34 years. When COVID hit us last year, it was something that nobody had ever experienced. And so moving forward now, we have to think about how we live in a COVID, post-COVID world. How do we manage our economy? Many young people have made the decision to move elsewhere, not only during this time, but even from before. And why? Because owning a home here is almost unaffordable and unattainable for them. And you know, I think to myself that if the future of Hawaii is moving away, what kind of future does our state have? You know, it's our people, our local people, that really make Hawaii such a very special place. And so that is a huge issue on my list, is how can we make sure that our young people stay so we can have a future for Hawaii. So all of these issues really weigh heavily on my heart. I have a great job. I don't need to do this, but I'm running for governor because, one, I feel that I can bring a new perspective to the problems, the massive problems that we're facing, some of them that we have had for many years and seemingly not resolved. And I believe I have the skills and the experience to tackle these issues and bring us on the right path. So I am also inspired by others who have given their life to public service. You know, my husband gave 28 years of his life to government service. And I'm thinking that if he can do 28, surely I think I can dedicate 4, or God willing, 8 years to serving the people of Hawaii. That's why I'm running.
You know, one of the things that, of course, the next governor will have to deal with is this COVID-19 crisis that we are in. The state was doing well at a time. We know that the Delta variant has certainly changed things, and we're seeing those large numbers day in and day out, not only with the case counts, but also the deaths that we are seeing because of COVID-19. Wanted to get your take on how the state has managed things thus far. And if you were in the position right now, how would you do things differently?
So I'm somebody who always says that it's easy to talk about things with hindsight as 2020. I would rather talk about what I would do if I were governor. And I think first it starts with a statewide plan. I really do believe that having clarity, communication, and collaboration, these 3 issues are going to be key to creating a COVID management plan throughout the state of Hawaii. I think that everybody from the mayors to the private sector, the nonprofits, the unions, of course, the legislators. We need everybody to weigh in on this, but we need to come up with a statewide plan so that we can create a safe place, not only for our residents, but for our visitors as well.
A difficult decision that Governor David Ige has had to make was the vaccine mandate for state and county employees. What are your thoughts on vaccine mandates? Do you agree with that decision? Is that something that you would continue?
So I think that though the requirement is for employees to be vaccinated, there are, I thought I heard that they could also take a COVID test, basically, and produce a negative COVID test is the other option. You know, my feeling on this is that the responsibility of any governor is to keep the people safe. Okay, and when I think about people who are opposed to it, I have to think about people like those who serve in the military. Think about the young men and women who give of their lives in order to keep us safe and free. And so my message is that if people are willing to lay down their lives to keep us safe and free, I have to really stand and say that I don't think it's a huge sacrifice for you to lay out your arm and get a 3-second shot to keep others safe and free. But I think that is the responsibility of any governor, and I am supportive of any and all things to keep our community safe.
One thing that the governor has done is create an opportunity for people to update their and upload, I should say, their vaccination cards through a vaccination passport, if you will. Mayor Rick Blangiardi has instituted that verification that is necessary to going into establishments such as restaurants and gyms. As a small business owner yourself, is this something that you would continue to support, is vaccine verification of some point to make sure that those who are entering these facilities are vaccinated or produce a negative test?
Of course, it's a bit of an intrusion. I think like everything, you have to create the balance and weigh the good against the bad, the pro versus the con. If COVID weren't so virulent, especially the Delta variant, and so deadly, sure, we would look at it and say, do we really have to do it? But if you consider how infectious COVID-19 is, and if you want to protect your employees, then my position would be that we have to do everything, including requirement of vaccinated customers into our facilities. I think a lot of businesses are doing that, and I applaud them for stepping up and doing the right thing.
You know, it's interesting. When we first asked you why you're running, you said, you know, that you don't necessarily need this job, but you felt compelled to do it. Was politics something that you'd always considered, or was it something unique about this moment that made you decide to jump in?
Oh, Yunji, if I wanted to be in politics, I would have started 30 years ago. So no, I've not been active politically, very honestly on that. But I am very concerned. You know, when COVID hit last year, looking around, seeing my colleagues, employees, jobs, the uncertainty, the confusion, which leads then to frustration and anger. And I think that's at the heart of a lot of these discussions. Just led me to say that I think we need leadership at the next opportunity to guide people, to create a plan, and to also create leadership that is both inspiring, but also with a detailed plan. And I think that's very key. I point to my record of doing things like connecting all the dots, collaborating with people that are involved, you know, from all over. So I look to that, and that's been my whole life experience of working with people, acknowledging that it takes a whole team to make this happen, and to create the opportunities that we need so that we can have a future for Hawaii. And that's why I'm running now, because I feel that never more in our history than we do now have we had a need for strong, clear leadership.
One of the things that you mentioned early is that, of course, you've never held political office, but you have had a front seat in it with your husband being the former governor. And you said in your press conference when you announced your candidacy that this would be your campaign, that while you will get advice from him, you are the one making the decisions. But I have to ask, as a former first lady, seeing your husband in this capacity of governor, how much of an influence would he have in your policies, and how much would you lean to him and his experience to help guide you should you get elected?
So I think that his experience over 28 years is something that is invaluable. But having said that, especially as someone in the private sector knows, things change very quickly. And what was done 20 years ago, it's been 20 years since he was in office. Things are very different now. And the solutions then don't necessarily apply to today. So having that institutional knowledge is great, but does it apply to the situation today? I think much of it is going to be very different. And people who know me also know that I am my own person. We share the same values of putting people first and knowing that we are stewards of what we're entrusted with. But in terms of approach and style, we're very different. I also would point out that I'm an entrepreneur and then a business person. That's very different. His background, of course, he was an attorney before he went into public office. And so I think the mindset of how we look at things is a little bit different. But as far as who's in the driver's seat, both at home and at work, I think you should know. That's me.
I want to ask you about tourism management. There is a tension, after having no tourists here for some time, as difficult as that was for our economy. When we had that first rush of tourists back, I think a lot of Kama'aina felt a little overwhelmed just by the volume after having so few. What is your thought process going forward in terms of how the state should help to better manage tourism? Because we do see a lot of tension between the visitor community and residents in Hawaii.
Absolutely. And I think we have to really view that tourism is important to our state. But having said that, the safety of our residents should always come first. And I don't think they necessarily clash. I really don't. But I think we have to work together better. HTA, for example, this is an agency that has been entrusted to manage tourism. I'm not sure that there is enough interaction with the state itself. And that's one of the things I would be looking to do, is to elevate that agency, the leader of that agency, so that there's more of interaction with Department of Transportation, so that, there's just got to be more connection between all the different organizations so that we're not working in silos, but working together synergistically. That's how I've been doing my business. And I think that that's really key to producing a successful outcome that benefits everybody.
Oh, Ryan, you're muted.
We are 2 for 2 on that today. Sorry about that. One of the things that we hear almost every election cycle is candidates talk about diversifying the economy. And we really saw it during the pandemic of Hawaii's reliance on the tourism industry and the impact that it had overall, with so many suffering during that time, during the shutdown of the pandemic. And there was calls for more diversification of the economy overall. Moving forward, as you begin your candidacy and you talk about some of these things and ways to diversify the economy, what specific examples or what ways do you think Hawaii can realistically begin shifting away from such a reliance on tourism?
So diversification is very important. But having said that, there's nothing that will replace tourism as our #1 industry. I think that's just the reality of it. But having said that, you do have to manage tourism better. But let's talk about diversification for a minute. I think that one of the things we can look at is also within the tourism industry, look at more niche type of tourism. As an example, we have really great healthcare services here in Hawaii. Could we be the Stanfords or the Cleveland clinics to the people from the Asian industry, from visitors from Asia? Why do they have to fly to California or even New York for services and treatment? Why couldn't Hawaii be the Asia, the Pacific healthcare center to the Asian visitors? So I think that creating that type of niche marketing can be very interesting and productive. The other thing I look at is filming. I think that Hawaii is a great location and has been proven to be for the film industry. I see that we can optimize more opportunities there. And then the last thing I would say is our ag industry. You know, we have the benefit, if you look at our climate here, of being able to grow a lot of things year round. And so I think that we need to look for opportunities to improve the approach to how we can foster a more productive agriculture industry. So those are some of it. I think high tech, there's opportunities here, especially with remote workforce. But having said that, I know that manufacturing is something that will always evade Hawaii. That's just not practical because of our location in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But I think this is where being an entrepreneur, you know, we have to create something from nothing. I started my business with 25 employees. Pre-pandemic, we were at over 1,000 employees. So as an entrepreneur, we have to always look at the glass as half full, not half empty. And we want to take that half full and make it all the way full. So I would definitely be looking at opportunities to how we can diversify and even within tourism, optimize it to create a more productive visitor industry. Not necessarily volume, but more productive.
I'm interested in your perspective as a female leader. I think that, you know, at your level in Hawaii, we see much more men than we do women. And in the pandemic, we've seen a lot of job loss for women, a lot of it tied to childcare, really, that there just isn't the resources for the women to go back. You know, I'm speaking as a woman with 2 young children, and I know a lot of my peers are in that circumstance. What do you think the state can do better to support working women? Are you in favor of creating more preschools, for instance, or what can we do better so that there is more equality in the workforce, particularly at your level?
Absolutely, Youngie. You know, having raised 2 children and working, honestly, I could never have done it without my parents. But I also know that I took advantage of A+ and a program that Ben had created when he was lieutenant governor. I'm a supporter of universal preschool. I realize that there's a price tag to that, but I'm also a believer that when we know we have to do the right thing, we will find the money to do it. So I would support universal preschool, and I would look at rolling it out in specific areas to trial it. So people in Waianae, Nanakuli, the areas that are most impacted by this pandemic, I think that that's the area that we would start with, and also on all the other islands as well. I also would like to look and work with the legislature on reinstating Healthy Start. This is a program that was put in place by Dr. Calvin Sia, who introduced it, really to give women at risk, children in disadvantaged households, a good start. That's why it's called Healthy Start, from the time they're born till about 2 years old. We need to look at why the funding was cut and how we could reinstate that and do a similar program. But I look at our workforce, which is 60% women in the service industry and in our company. And absolutely, we need to focus on this because there's a real need there. And we need to help them so that they can go to work and not face the agonizing decision of what to do with their children or not have a paycheck. That shouldn't be something that they have to think about.
In the beginning of our conversation, you talked about things becoming so expensive for many local residents, forcing them to have to leave the state. And one of the things that you say you want to do is help people to be able to live and thrive here in Hawaii. But as we see these prices of the average home sales and condo sales here on the island of Oahu continue to rise, and the scarcity of just available housing overall throughout the state, what do you propose as a solution to helping to bring down some of these rising costs and just the overall cost of living for those residents here in Hawaii?
So keeping in mind that I just announced my candidacy about 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, it is something I'm working on, and that is my style, is to bring people under the tent to talk to subject matter experts, to listen, to learn. But if you look on my website, www.vickyforgovernor.com, you will see affordable housing, cost of living as part of my 10 issues, because that is a very real problem. But I don't think even in 5-10 minutes we could talk about all the details of such a plan. But all I would share with you is that we're talking to people who have looked at it. And interestingly, we can learn from other parts of the world. We are looking at a model, believe it or not, from Helsinki, Finland, that works for affordable housing. And so we're looking at that to see how might that be a program for Hawaii. But we have to recognize we are a very unique place. But without a doubt, we have to start first with affordable housing and then look at cost of living as it relates to everything else. Why has shipping gone up so exponentially in the last 6 months? I want to talk with people in those industries to listen, to learn, and to see what we can do together to address those problems. It affects business, but most of all, it affects the individual consumers.
One of the issues that the current administration has been criticized for in terms of decision making is Mauna Kea. What are your thoughts on the telescope and whether that should move forward?
So everything that happened around the TMT, if you think about it, it's really, that was the surface of it. But underneath, there have been a number of issues, Native Hawaiian issues, that have not been dealt with. And that is something that we can't keep kicking the can down the road. But that was just one of several issues that the Native Hawaiians are unhappy with. And so as I learn more about it, one of the things that we need to do is address those issues in depth. But I fully support TMT. But having said that, I do think we need to listen and hear what's underneath all those, the dissatisfaction of TMT, because that's just the surface. There are other things that we need to talk about with Native Hawaiians. And that is also on my 10 issues, Native Hawaiian issues.
With so much happening, going on right now, our leaders are having to make some very tough decisions. And we know that two people who are likely also going to officially announce that they are running includes the current Lieutenant Governor Josh Green, as well as former Honolulu Mayor Kirk Caldwell, both who have expressed interest in also running for governor. What is your assessment of the work that they have done overall during this time being leaders? We know that both of them have been very public faces and have had to take some strong stances during the pandemic that have pleased some people and have disappointed others. Given that you will be running against these two men, but what do you think and how would you grade maybe their performance overall and things that they have done during their time and their leadership?
I'm not someone who's going to just give somebody a grade on that. I've always said that until you walk in someone's shoes, you may not fully understand what they've had to do. I would just point out that our experiences are very different. And so I think that it's good for the voters to have an option. And I think that if you look at their background, it's very different from what I bring to the table. So I would just urge voters to look at the websites and read up more about the candidates and make sure that you are a well-informed voter when you cast your ballot.
We did say up at the top that you are a familiar face to a lot of folks, but what is something that you wish more people knew about you as you head into this process? There's going to be so many profiles written about you and so many people trying to get to know you. What is something that you want to make sure that the community understands that they may not know?
Well, on a serious note, I would just say that I would want really voters and people to know that I'm running in this race to win it. But as governor, I'm not here to just make small incremental change. I don't want you to be satisfied to just survive. I want people in Hawaii to be able to live and thrive. And that's going to take some bold decisions, big ideas, and together, if we believe it, we can dream it, and we will achieve it. That's my serious answer. Now, on the trivial answer, what I would like people to know is what I enjoy as therapy. And that would be my love of animals, music, and believe it or not, washing cars and watching football. And my husband and I have two very separate teams, so we can't watch it in the same room. But those are the things that I do for therapy. And but I really want people to know that I want to create a better future, especially for the next generation. I have 4 grandchildren, and I desperately want them to be able to live here.
Well, my car's pretty dirty, so I'll be bringing it over.
Bring it on, Ryan.
I'm happy. I'm happy to make that therapeutic opportunity for you. This is going to be a very difficult time to campaign during COVID-19, where we are once again restricted with gathering sizes. Wanted to just get your thoughts overall as someone who is entering the race, somewhat as a surprise to many people who were not expecting to see your name here. You obviously need to raise some cash as well. Talk to us about how it's going to be campaigning moving forward during this time of COVID-19.
Well, I think that one has to be fluid and change, and that's our whole world, just keeps changing, even in campaigns. So yes, it's very different. I think we have to work harder, smarter, be more creative. A lot of it will be via virtual meetings, but it is what it is. So we're going to make it work. We're going to have a very strong campaign.
The time goes so fast and we are almost out of time, but I do want to give you an opportunity for a final message, especially for those folks who are just sort of, getting to have a little bit of awareness about your candidacy. And because a lot of folks, we've been so fixated on COVID-19 and watching the daily case count and just trying to sort of make it through the day that the campaign for governor is way in the future and seems out of mind. But just a final thought this morning to people who are starting to learn more about this race.
Thank you. Well, I would want to say that, when I look at all the issues, the 10 issues that make up my platform, and you're right, COVID is at the forefront of it, followed very quickly with climate change and the economy. But we are going to come up with a plan to live with this COVID world so that we can stay safe. And when we do that, our attention will be immediately on all the many issues we need to address for the betterment of our people. One thing that's I feel is common to solving all these issues is the need for clarity, communication, and leadership. I bring to the table a career, 34 plus years of doing that, and not working in silos, but working with teams of people to produce a successful outcome. It's the ability to connect all the dots so that we can see what the end result has to be. That's been my experience, and that is what I would like to bring to this position.
Okay, Vicky Cayetano, thank you so much for spending your Friday morning with us, answering our questions about your campaign. And we hope to see you back here sometime in the future. We know that as the campaign kicks into high gear, I'm sure we'll see more and hear more of you. And you're certainly always welcome to come back anytime that you are available.
Especially if I wash your car.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Well, wonderful to hear from her. And I thought, she talked about a wide range of issues. You heard her there talking particularly about trying to elevate the economy and rebuild things. She said that it is going to take bold leadership, answering your question about her most likely opponents, Lieutenant Governor Josh Green and former Mayor Kirk Caldwell. She said that she doesn't necessarily want to give them a grade, but she did say that she has a very distinct experience that is very different from those two career politicians, although Dr. Green, of course, is also an emergency room physician, but that she hasn't gone into politics before, that this wasn't something that she necessarily had been thinking about for years, but she feels compelled at this moment because of the crisis that we're in to jump into the race. And so it's very interesting to hear from her. And I like hearing always about the personal side. It's very interesting to hear that Vicky Cayetano washes her own car. I would not have expected that.
Yeah, and finds it therapeutic for one thing. And the other thing that she did mention, of course, with just who she is and her former role as a first lady. There will be many who compare her to her husband, of course, the former governor, but she made it very clear that while some of the decisions that the former governor, Ben Cayetano, made some 20 years ago, a lot of that has changed. And the solutions of the past does not necessarily mean the solutions of what we need for the future. And that she would be looking for new ways to develop and really make a name for herself in this field, and relying on her husband's institutional knowledge of the work operations of government, but not necessarily relying on him for policies and decision making moving forward. That this is her campaign, and that she has some bold ideas that she said that she wants to do to allow people in Hawaii to thrive. We also heard about a little bit more about, of course, her stance with COVID-19 and the things that need to be done, saying that a lot of what is in place, of course, is because she also believes needs to be done to protect people, which includes those vaccine and testing mandates.
Yeah, interesting to hear that she does support the vaccine mandates and the vaccine verification. As a business owner herself, she said it does come down to public safety. She did say that tourism is our number one industry and that that is not going to change, but there could be ways to diversify that experience. She talked about the possibility of increasing medical facilities to have more medical tourism. Why should people have to go all the way to the mainland and beyond to get those services? That could be a niche for us here in Hawaii. Also, technology and other things there. So, her obviously her website is going to have a lot more on that, but it was great to talk to her this morning. Always love hearing from her. So that was wonderful. And as you said, she's always welcome back. On Monday, we are going to be talking to her possible opponent, Lieutenant Governor Josh Green. We're going to be talking to him not in his capacity as a candidate, but as the Lieutenant Governor and the person who is helping to steer the state when it comes to vaccine distribution and also the Safe Travels program. We always like hearing from him, and I'm sure there will be a lot of questions.
Yeah, I always get a lot of questions for the lieutenant governor. Want to get a better sense of where we're at and where we're headed. Really, one of the things that we know the state continues to watch is those hospitalizations. So getting an update after this weekend and really seeing how the impacts of Labor Day is playing out here a few weeks later, and if the state is really seeing that surge that many were afraid of. We also will be talking to Dr. Libby Char from the Department of Health, as well as traveling to the island of Maui to speak with Mayor Mike Victorino as on some of the things that are happening there on Maui as well. All next week, a full week ahead. We thank you so much for being a part of this conversation today. We thank Vicky Cayetano, of course, for joining us. Remember that you can always watch this watch this broadcast anytime on the platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser or as a podcast. And hope you all have a great weekend. We'll see you right back here on Monday. Aloha.
Aloha.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii was brought to you by Chaminade University.